Hi, Greenwich. This is Mélisse Brunet, and I will be your finalist music director for the concerts happening on January 8th and 9th of next year, 2022. I am here today with William Hagen, and he will be the soloist featured in that concert, and we will be playing Lalo, Symphonie Espagnole. Will, you are playing everywhere in the world with all the major orchestras. You're playing chamber music also at the highest levels. You started the violin very, very young. You're from Salt Lake City and you started at 4 years old. So I'm wondering, is it because you wanted or someone else wanted for you to start the violin? What's the story behind that?
Very much because I wanted. So, you and I were recording this the day before Christmas Eve, and every year my family does a family Christmas party with all the cousins and everything, and we all get together and play instruments. And I'm the only professional musician in that group, and so my dad always does a clarinet solo, and he plays about 5 notes that he can actually play on the clarinet. And my uncle, my dad's brother, plays like 1 or 2 notes on the trumpet. It's like a physical trial. um and that it's but anyway, that's the family that I come from, so it was really unexpected. I get really obsessed with things. Over the pandemic, I got really into gardening, really into things like that. And, I don't just go, oh, I think I'll, try it. If I get into it, it's like, I'm just really into it. And violin has been truly like the lifelong obsession.
Is it because you saw an orchestra or you saw a musician with a violin? I mean, because how did it come?
I think I saw just a very casual performance of the violin when I was 3 years old. And you think about when a 3-year-old is excited about something. Usually it lasts about 30 minutes.
Mhm.
And then it's like,
That's already very long, 30 minutes.
yeah. And I was so obsessed with that short 2-minute violin performance that I heard that I was begging for like my whole, for months. And my parents said, okay, we'll get him a little violin, a little thing like this, for my fourth birthday. And then I heard Itzhak Perlman play, and I thought, oh, I really want to be a concert violinist. And that stuck. So after a while, I thought, oh, I like baseball more than basketball. Oh, I like baseball more than football. And throughout, it was always violin for sure. What happened was I won a little local competition when I was 8 years old, and that showed me that it was something that I could legitimately pursue. But really, it was just, oh my gosh, I love this so much. I want to do more of it. And that's kind of just been the whole thing.
Let's talk about your violin because you've got a very, very special violin. It's a Stradivari that loaned to you. Is that correct? And can you
Yeah.
tell us about it?
This is the Arkwright Lady Rebecca Sylvan. A bunch of English people owned it and all wanted to name it after themselves. So that's why it's got such a long name. But it's the Arkwright Lady Rebecca Sylvan from 1732. And I think that if birth dates are always difficult around
Yeah.
that time period. He would have been a very old man at this point. So Stradivari would have been in his late 80s. I show people, if you look at, normally maybe it's hard to tell on Zoom, but normally the F holes are basically symmetrical, but you'll see this is a much longer
Mm.
F hole than the other one. So if I
Oh, that's
and it's
interesting.
just a little scrappy to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah.
holes are just a little different.
Wow. And I'm sure it has a huge impact, of course, on the sound.
Yeah, yeah, and you'll see it's kind of a so most Strads I've played. The really old violins are very fat. I call them footballs because they're like the shape of a football, American football. Um, and uh, I had played on them and not liked the sound of them. And you play a Strat, and usually it's this very flat violin. And for whatever reason, the flat violin just sends the sound out. And so I saw this fat violin when I first tried it, and I thought, oh, this one's not going to sound good. It's it sounds really
Mm.
good.
And
So
that's amazing because the price tag that comes with that instrument is not affordable,
not at all,
generally. So
not
that's
at all.
amazing that you get it.
Yeah, and this is from the Rachel Barton Pine Foundation. Rachel Barton Pine is an amazing violinist in her own right, and the foundation, I like having it loaned from this foundation in particular because it's not like an instrument bank where they're just doing that. The foundation is mainly devoted to supporting young children who don't have the economic means to pursue music.
Wow.
We really, those of us in the profession, really take for granted how expensive it is to even try to learn the violin.
Absolutely.
So that's what the foundation mainly does. I was playing on a Del Jesu when this violin was offered to me, and I went to Rachel's apartment in Chicago, and she said, "Would you want to try this?" I go, "Yeah," and I tried it, and the E string, the A string, and the D string were like mind blowingly good. And then I tried the G string, and it was completely unplayable. Like you couldn't. It was just horrible. And I thought, "Oh boy." And it hadn't been played in a while, so I thought, "Oh no, this is a violin that has a big problem." I got all excited for nothing. Anyway, took it to the shop. They made one adjustment, and turns out the G string is amazing too. So it's just very, very lucky to play on this violin. I've never complained about it once.
That's
I,
an amazing sound. And by the way, you can check the sound of this violin on your recording that is called Danse Russe. So if you want to listen to that violin, you can check that recording. It's on Spotify and on iTunes. Wonderful, very clear, beautiful, and pure sound. Symphonie Espagnole, which is basically Spanish symphony by Edouard Lalo. And so that's really interesting when it was written, because it was written in 1874, which is the year where in France you had all of those painters meeting together for the first exhibition of impressionism, which is very important here in France. And of course, Lalo was very interested in painting as well. And then it was premiered in 1875, 1 month before Carmen Bizet. Carmen by Bizet, the opera, was written, which is so interesting because there are so many similarities between the two pieces as well. And by of course, the Spanish spirit. That was a time in Europe where everybody, all composers would write national styles, Hungarian, Russian, Spanish, Italian, that kind of themes. In that case, though, it's called Symphonie Espagnole because it was dedicated to that great Spanish violinist, Pablo de Sarasate. Um, and that's why it's given that name, and it uses Spanish-like themes or dances and things. What what is it for you, that Symphonie Espagnole? How do you feel about it?
I think first of all, I think it's one of the absolute best violin concertos. And I think anybody that, if you ask my manager about how I feel about Lalo, he'll tell you that I always ask to play Lalo. So there's a list of concertos that, if you could play any piece, what would it be? Lalo is very high up on that list for me. I love it. Well, first of all, you're playing 5 movements, very diverse things. And it's one of the most emotionally varied pieces. So the beginning is just wow, kind of
Yum, bum, bum.
yeah, it just really, really intense.
Yeah, and the Spanish pride too.
Yes, it's yeah, very kind of prideful, very virtuosic. The second movement is so flirtatious.
Yeah, the second movement is it's like a seguidilla, like in Carmen, seguidilla, Bizet, Carmen, very, very charming and
Super
flirtatious. Yeah.
bordering on sexy. And
Yes.
the third movement, there's no border, it's just sexy. And
Yeah.
you don't get to, it's just so fun. You're dancing in this piece, you're flirting, the fourth movement is so heartbreakingly beautiful, like really heartbreakingly. And then the last movement is virtuosity on the level of Paganini violin concerto, and but not just technique in your face. It's just sounds like the violinist is just having fun and doing these tricks on the spot, which is so it never loses its charm. Anyway, but through all 5 movements, you have a really nice story arc. It's not like random, 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 random. There's kind of a
Like
and
a
it
sweet.
yeah, it's a suite. That's what I was just about to say. it's a suite more than a. It's almost more a suite than a concerto or a symphony. I've played Tchaikovsky violin concerto quite a lot, and this was the inspiration for the Tchaikovsky violin concerto. So everybody knows Tchaikovsky violin concerto. Of course, Tchaikovsky wrote it. He's a much more famous composer. So um, there's that. But he was so amazed with this piece. That's what made
Yeah.
him write his violin concerto. He was just blown away with this.
Which we are so thankful for. Can you imagine that kind of interconnections at the time where there were no recordings? Obviously, you can go not go check it on YouTube or see it live on Facebook, you know. But this is
Yeah,
amazing that during those 5 years, like between 75 and 80, so there was Lalo, then Tchaikovsky, then you've Brahms, Dvorak.
so different. So
Yes, but in 5 years, really major concertos for violin here.
I think to call it a concerto would be not quite right, just simply because you don't have your orchestral introduction, violin plays, orchestral introduction. It's
Exactly.
more, it's
Intricate.
yeah,
Very,
yeah.
and to me as a conductor, I feel it's not the kind of concerto where you just do, okay, next measure. You really have in all concerti, but here even more chamber music, and we really need to talk together and see are we on the same page because it's we are so much there is a dialogue between the two, and so I really think that symphony fits very well. Can I ask you to demonstrate what's your favorite spot in the concert?
I mean, I just love the sweetness. That's that flirty one. I
Yes,
always
yes, yes.
always was so uh I was always just like, wow, this is the prettiest and just like the most fun to listen to.
Yeah.
And
And it
then
makes you, yeah.
I mean, just so Spanish. So I'll just say this real quick. The favorite place in a piece for me, I do have moments where I'm so excited for this one spot, but the whole I love the telling of the story. And I think actually lots of the maybe a problem, not a problem, but I think if somebody comes to a classical concert to hear pretty sounds, they're not serving their own experience because you're listening to stories. It's just a different medium to hear a story, a narrative. It's very rarely just pretty sounds. And if you listen to Lalo, you'll hear this clear storyline that goes through 5 movements. People often talk about singing, and I almost think about talking through the instrument. I feel like it's so direct. It's we use words to create. Language. You use the language to create a story or to create a feeling, and I feel like in music that doesn't have words, you immediately get the adjective that you're going for. You immediately get the word or the feeling.
Yeah.
None of the baggage of misunderstanding the language. It's just there for you. And this person may hear sexy, this person may hear cute, this person may hear um, heartwarming. And they're all right.
Mhm.
They're all correct. So I think that's what's so it's the best thing about this art form. It's the most personal
Yeah.
for an audience member. They can say, "This is what I was struck by."
For audience members who want to get to know that piece, I know you have not recorded it yet. So, what is your favorite recording they could listen to and find on YouTube and get to know the piece?
I love a recording by Vadim Repin and uh,
Paris?
and
Or,
Chung. Yes,
Chang and Paris, Orchestre de la Radio.
I love that recording.
Yeah, it's Orchestre Philharmonique de Radio France with Chung conducting and Vadim Repin playing the violin. It's amazing. I love that recording too.
Okay, that's so good to hear you say that. I mean, I love it.
Will, I cannot wait to meet you for real and to play music together in that amazing concerto, Symphony, actually, Symphonie Espagnole. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I likewise, I can't wait.
Okay, see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.